Yo, what up, Super Fun Force? It's Captain Gamesta. Today, for one of my Beyblade Tuesday videos, I'm going to quickly talk about how I play competitive Beyblade, how I have events, how I play with my friends and stuff like that, and hopefully you guys can enjoy it. Now, please hear me out because I believe that the method that I've been playing and introducing to the community has helped it fully realize its potential and it becomes more enjoyable and more accessible for everyone. It's basically a modified version of the WBBA rules. And I also respect and understand that there's other, independent organizations out there like the WBO. And just like what I'm doing, I'm sure a lot of players in their communities and their events, their stores can also do their own rules. So more power to you guys. I just hope that my format helps you guys, again, further enjoy the game with more players and with more Beyblades. So check this out. What we do is we play Beybladeburst, and we have two types of formats. We have basically the Dynamite Battle format, and essentially that's what's current right now, right? So we do allow people to bring in Beyblades and parts all the way up to the current release, right, from BU. However, obviously from, power reasons, we see mostly all Dynamite Battle and BU Beyblades. We do see, different drivers from across the eras, and sometimes we see some sparking layers, right? But this format is played on this stadium here, I believe the B133, the Dynamite Battle Standard Stadium. That's one format. The other format we play in is Super GT, so we play everything up to GT only, and we primarily see a lot of Cho-Z combinations and GT combinations, of course. What this means is that you cannot mix like drivers that were first released in Sparking or like Dynamite Battle. Basically any part, any driver, any forged disc that has come out after the GT series cannot be used in our Super GT series. All right, so whether we're playing Super GT or, Dynamite Battle, Burst Ultimate, what we do is we play the WBBA 5G and 3G battle case rules. And what happens is you register the team in a specific order and you must maintain that order throughout the entire series. And here's the big kicker. We play on a point-based system, not like a first to three and find a victor that way. So let me explain a little bit on that. So first of all, we also don't do like the whole like deck boxes or mixing and matching parts throughout the, event. If you guys do that in your own thing, that's fine. That's cool. But again, we stick to the team. So what this does, right, is, well, first of all, let me just explain like what that means, and I'll talk about the pros, right, the advantages. So what that means is that you have 5 bays in order, right, that will be slotted here from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in an order. You register that list, you turn that in to the event organizer. And again, you have to keep that same order throughout the entire series, with a small exception, which we'll get to later. Now, what happens is when you battle your opponent, you battle each and every bay in that order against each other. So my number 1 will battle their number 1, my number 2 battles their number 2, 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4, 5 versus 5. And then what happens is that each of those battles will give points to both players. And essentially what happens is at the end of the battle, you can say that the winner is technically the one who scored the most points. However, what makes this system great is that we do like a Swiss, and we have battles where, people are having more points battling each other. But at the end, like the top 4 to go into the finals are the ones with the most points, right? So that's what we've been doing. So here's how that works though, right? So we use the 1 point if you get a survivor finish or final spin, right? Stamina. And then we also do 2 points for a knockout into these pockets here or a burst, okay? And I'm gonna show you some examples in a minute. If there is a draw, right? If there is a draw, both players get a point. No rebattling, right? And then if there is ever a simultaneous out or an out and a burst, same thing. Both players will get 2 points, okay? What we don't do is we don't ever like rebattle, or we don't look and say, okay, if they both got knocked out, did one hit the wall first and get knocked out first, or did one burst first? We just count it as if at the end they both were knocked out, if at the end they both had bursted, regardless, then both players will score the appropriate amount of points, okay? Now, one caveat is we could be, depending on as we battle more, we could modify the burst to 3 points because that is the most difficult thing to do. But so far, you know, we like the 1, 2, and 2. Okay? But the most important thing is here, when you're scoring points, we don't rematch. We just count any type of, you know, simultaneous, you know, match endings, or, you know, whatever, winning, whatever you want to call it. We count points again for both players, because at the end, it's about accumulating points overall. Okay? Now you might be thinking, whoa, what? That's like, wow, right? Now here, let me get into the pros of that, because number one, there are so many bays that we want to use, right? So to be able to create like a 5G team, you know, even a 3G team, and to be able to battle all of your bays against your opponent is enjoyable, right? The strategy comes in on, again, when you start thinking about the meta, how you're going to create your team. Like, are you going to do more attack types, defense, stamina, balance? How do you want to set that up in whatever order that you think can have, obviously, you know, like the most impact, depending on how you think other players are setting up their team order and their roster. That creates its own little like pre-strategy, and you also have to get kind of good at anticipating and kind of predicting. And then, again, this allows for the most variety of parts, right? Because what I find is that when you start getting to like, you know, just like deck building and modifying, it really makes the game unfun and very limited. Like, everybody takes the three, you know, the same 3 layers, same 3 drivers, you know, and then it's just like constant, you know, battling. You're getting draws. You're doing like nonstop, like, takes you 30 minutes to do like one battle, because everyone keeps getting draws and draws and draws and draws if it's going for stamina, right? Especially with the newer bays being harder to burst, right? So again, that's all fine and dandy. Like I said, if you guys play that way, that's fantastic. But we want to just get through it quickly. And what we want to be able to do is use all of our parts, all of our combinations, all of our bays in the unique setup. And this also allows you to take kind of risks and use things that might not necessarily be quote unquote meta or powerful. You might put together this super unique combination that has like, you know, good matchups here, bad matchups here. But that fun is like you get to express your creation. And when you go up against a good matchup, you know that you're a little bit more confident, and you're, you know, able to like launch a specific way to, you know, understand how that helps your matchup. But if you're also the underdog and you know that, oh, it's so hard to beat that, then you can either try to like, you know, use other techniques. Again, maybe you've practiced some ways of launching to help you win a little bit, how you want to aim and launch your, you know, bay in the arena against them. And it just is that much more exciting when you actually could win those underdog matchups. At the same time, seeing a whole different bunch of combinations makes each battle fresh and exciting. You know, you're bound to come across similar combinations and stuff like that. But again, knowing how those matchups work with the parts, being able to like launch, you know, bank launch, different angle, different position, aiming it and stuff like that is fantastic, you know? So I can't emphasize that enough, but just, and it's so smooth, just playing through your whole team and not having to worry about like draws and stuff like that. Now, here's what I want to talk about really quickly. The basic rules, right, that everything has to follow to be legal. It's like what WBBA says. You have to launch from just right above here. So you can't like launch your bay from like 5 feet in the air. You can't put it like really close inside. You obviously can't make contact with other people. You have to be mindful. There's like a split here, right? So from what we do is we place the stadium just like this between player 1 and player 2. The 2 pockets are always on the left and the right of each player. And basically down the middle, there's like an imaginary line. So you cannot cross that line. So when you're going to launch, right? When you're going to launch, you have to launch within your half of the zone. You can't like go into theirs, obviously. And you know, you have to, after you launch, you have to carefully retract, right? Without hopefully trying to tangle strings. And again, don't get into their way and stuff like that. The only other thing that there could be a reshoot is when the bays are launched, they have to be legal for the way their parts and their combinations are. So for example, like with the Phoenix, the armor cannot come off until it's actually landed, right, and made contact. So in other words, if you launch it and the armor flies off, or it drops and the armor just shoots off while their bay is like over there, that's an illegal launch, and you can only get, we usually give just 1 warning, sometimes 2, but we let people know before a tournament, and then there's a relaunch. The other one is the bays have to technically always land on the stadium first and make contact driver to the base before the battle begins and they start hitting each other. In other words, you can't try to like, you know, snipe people out like when they're launching and then you try to hit them in the midair. None of that. We don't allow any of that stuff. It's just like in the anime, and it's just better overall to make sure that your bays land in the stadium first and then start making contact. Okay? After that, like if they bounce on each other sometimes or whatever happens, it's totally fair. It's just, remember, you got to make sure you land first on the stadium. Okay? So with that being said, one other thing I want to mention is when it comes to the points, like I said, we don't do any like reshoots. So if both players draw, right, like you both get the final spin, we give both players 1 point, right? So because you're trying to accumulate points. So then you just go to the next match. You don't sit there and try to battle again. And then under the situation, you might end up getting like 5 draws. It just makes the game so much more like, drawn out than it should be and tedious. So it's like you just go right in. If you guys both get final spin, you get a draw, both get 1 point. Same thing if like both bays simultaneously get knocked out or they burst, then you both get the 2 points. We don't sit there and say, okay, let's watch in slow motion. Did this person hit the wall and fall out first, like half a second before this person fell out? Or did this person like burst half a second before this person bursted, their bay? No, it's just if they both, at the end of the battle, when everything stops moving, if both are out of the ring or if both are bursted, then again, both players get those points, okay? Now, here's the one exception though. What we do is, when it comes to the top 4, right? So at the end, right, if let's say both players scored whatever, like 10 points, right? Then that's fine, they move on, right? There's no need to sit there and have any tiebreaker until, like I said, when we get to the final top 4, because what we usually do is we do the Swiss pairings and stuff like that based on points, right? And we try to get a certain amount of, depending on how many players, we try to get a certain amount of battles so that everybody can play as many different people as possible, accumulate a lot of points, and then we take the top 4 or top 8 depending. And then what happens is if we have ties, right? So if someone, if there's like a top 1, 2 people with the most points, right? They're going to get put into the brackets for top 4. But if there's like maybe 6 players extra that have the same amount of points and we can only fill in, 2 more, what we do is we randomly have them battle, but we do it quickly where we just take one random bay from their team, okay? And then they just reveal them at the same time and they battle it. And whatever wins, right? When a player gets a clear victory over the other, then that person eliminates the other person. And that other person that's eliminated can't make it into the top 4 battles anymore. This is the only time where it might take a little bit more than once because, again, if we both pick a bay, we battle it, we get a draw, what happens is that one's not going to be selected anymore. We have to pick another one and go. If both of our bays then just get knocked out, we set that aside and then we take another one. And if they both get bursted, we do another one. But as soon as somebody wins, then the other person gets knocked out. If you go through your whole team, now this is super, like this never happens, right? But if you went through your whole team and you keep tying, like you keep getting draws, simultaneous bursts, simultaneous knockouts, then you just reset after you finish going through your 5. But that never happens, right? Like within 1 or 2 matches, it's already decided, and then somebody's going into the top 4. And then when we go into the top 4, we do the same thing. We reset the points though, and we go through, and then we do the same thing essentially just with the top 4 players until we find a victor who has the most points. Or we might even just say, okay, if you have player 1 and 2 battling in top 4, player 3 and 4 battling, what we can do is we'll say, well, after this match, whoever has the most points plays the winner of this match, who has the most points, and then boom, we have the victory. And then after that, obviously, the next 2 can play for 3rd and 4th. So there you guys go. The main thing, again, is we like playing on a point system, just a summary and to summarize, is because it allows for the strategy and the fun and, of course, luck to create your team in a specific order with a specific balance to basically express your combinations, your favorite bays, and your strategy, right? You can do all balance, you can do all attack. You can do, attack, balance, defense, defense, attack or something, or stamina, attack, balance. Or you can do like attack, defense, balance, attack, defense, and all that. So that makes it really fun. And we're going to see a bunch more parts. And the final thing is we pay attention to the WBBA rules as well, where it's like only one, spin switch mode. So you can't have like 2 or 3 different Spriggans that can switch modes and, left and right. You can only have one spin switch and stuff like that, right? And no repeated parts. So if this has S gear, for example, the other one has S gear, they can't be in the same team, right? But one can have, S gear Nexus, the other one can have All Might D gear, or excuse me, not Nexus S gear, and the other one can have All Might D gear, right? But you couldn't have Nexus Forge Disc with the S gear, and you couldn't have All Might with the S gear in the same team, right? But you could do destroy dash, metal destroy. You can do, you know, drift, metal drift, right? That stuff is fine. You can repeat the part if it's, you know, a completely different part, right? That's the only exception there. Just like in the WBBA. All right, guys. So I'm going to finish this off with a few examples, just so you guys can see when it comes to like deciding a victory. So, like, all right. So let's take a look at a draw. Coming down the final spin. See, that's a complete draw. They both ended their final spins. And although it looks like Dynamite may have tilted down a little bit, they both stopped at the same time. Draw. And as we can see here, this is a definite win for Roar. And as you can see here, that's a definite win for Vanish. And so what happened at the end was after Roar stopped spinning, Vanish actually hit it and spun it again a little bit while Vanish was still spinning. So this is definitely a final spin survivor finish for Vanish. And don't forget, please like and subscribe. And always keep your faith, say a prayer, spread that love, be positive, be thankful, guys. I'll be coming back at you. Peace.